Started out life as an electric power engineer, where he had worked for ABB and seemed firmly set on that trajectory. He somehow got knocked off that trajectory and is now associate professor of economics at the Research Institute of Industrial Economics. He is also an associate here at EPRG, and also spends time at Stanford, where he's associate of the program on energy and sustainable development. Eddie Anderson will be his nemesis.
Well, thank you.
A 5-minute heads up in about 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. So yes, I'm going to talk about capacity mechanism and the technology mix in competitive electricity markets. And this is joint work together with Robert Ritz, who's sitting here. This is very much work in progress. So I will present what we have now, and then we will plan to extend this. So I will start with an introduction. So electricity markets are special in at least 3 ways. And first, that electricity is expensive to store. And then there are some consumers who do not have full control over their demand. And then we have these capacity payments. So, and this thing that electricity is expensive to store means that there will be production capacity, which some of it is only used as a backup. So there will be, as Richard explained, there will be this trade-off between high investment cost and low marginal cost, or sort of the other way around, with a low investment cost and a high marginal cost. And which technology is best depends on how much this plant is going to be used. And then, I mean, this is changing with demand response and this, but as it's the case, at least in Sweden still, it's many consumers, they don't have full control over their consumption. So what I mean, for example, now I'm standing here and I'm consuming electricity back in my flat in Sweden. And if the price went up, I couldn't switch it off. So it would just. So, but fortunately, there is a system operator who would sort of step in. If the price would become extremely high, he would step in and do some rolling blackouts at some high price, the price cap. And in Nordic countries, the price cap is 5,000 euros per megawatt hour. And which is roughly 100 times the normal price. And then we have this capacity mechanism, and the purpose is to reduce the risk of blackouts, power shortages. I guess there are examples of the countries that do not have them, but as far as I know, most countries have such a capacity mechanism. And in Sweden, they are actually quite small, and they are called a strategic reserve. So it's a reserve which is used when the normal market doesn't clear. There's not enough capacity in the normal market. Then there is a strategic reserve which is used before there will be any rationing of demand. And I believe Germany has something similar. But then there are more in US. The capacity market is sort of more involved in the market operations. So essentially, it's an auction where capacity is procured, and then all capacity in the market get this capacity payment. So it's a uniform payment, whereas in Sweden it's a payment which only goes to capacity in this strategic reserve. My understanding was that in UK there was this where there was different capacity auctions for different technologies, but I got a feeling maybe from your talk that this has changed, or maybe I misunderstood.
Auctions are for the renewables, and the capacity is for capacity in this one auction.
Okay. Okay, so why do we need these capacity auctions and the capacity payments? Why it's not? I mean, if I want to regulate investments, then I can also move the price cap up and down. So that would be one way. So why do we need capacity payments as well? And then there are many answers to that. So depending on the things that the people consider. So, well, one thing is that the capacity payments means that one can have a lower price cap, and therefore one will have less volatile electricity prices. It can also be used to mitigate market power, and that's something that we will look into in our paper. And Natalia Fabra has I think also looked at that. Natalia also looked at system externalities and how the capacity payments could be used to internalize system externalities. So actually we will follow Natalia's footsteps, one can say. We'll look at these two as well. But then there are other reasons why capacity payments are useful. So it's been, various things have been explored in the literature. So what we do in this paper is that we consider these two policy instruments. We have the price cap and we have the capacity payment, and we want to see how they influence investments, optimal investments, and under what circumstances one can get optimal investments for each technology. And this is something which we are sort of thinking about extending here, but to look at also at, for example, strategic reserves. But at the moment we look at the American system where there's a uniform capacity payment. And as I said, we will analyze how these two policy instruments, how they can be used to mitigate market power and to manage or deal with system externalities. We will focus on competitive electricity markets so far. At least that's where the paper is now. But we also have a simple extension where we have a monopoly market. So that's what we are doing. And there is previous work on this. I already mentioned Natalia's paper, but there are also a couple of others who have looked at capacity markets. Well, our understanding is that much of this literature focus on cases where there are one or two technologies, so it's perhaps baseload and peaker technology. And what we do is we will consider a broad range of technologies, actually somewhat similar to BERT, but we will not do that stuff with the startup cost and all of that. So we will keep the model simpler, and we will consider capacity payments. So I mean there are previous work on investments without the capacity payments, which also consider cases with a continuum of technologies. But as far as we know, these papers haven't really considered capacity markets. So that was some background, and now I will talk about the model. So it's we have a continuum of technologies, and for each technology there is an investment cost, K of C, and the trade-off there is that when the marginal cost goes up, then one can have a lower investment cost. And also we assume that the investment cost is convex with respect to the marginal cost, just to make it more well-behaved. The optimization problem becomes more well-behaved. And there is also an endogenous cutoff for the technology. So producers, they could there's a wide range of marginal cost that producers can choose, but actually there will be a cutoff, so they will sort of be in some range from 0 here and up to investments will be in this range from 0 and up to this C bar, which is an endogenous cutoff. So in the first stage, producers will choose how much to invest into each technology, and the result then will be essentially a marginal cost curve. So essentially one can say that they choose a marginal cost curve in the first stage. And then they also get this endogenous cutoff, and they also choose the market capacity, which is the epsilon hat here. And then we have a second stage, and we assume that producers are, at least in the in the baseline model, we assume that producers are price takers, so it's perfectly competitive. So they will bid, they will supply according to the marginal cost. And then there is a demand shock here. So demand is uncertain, and it follows some probability distribution. And here we can have an epsilon realization, and the price will be where supply meets demand. I should also say that consumers, they have a marginal variation of electricity, which is P star, but there's no demand response, so nothing happens if the price goes up. They can't control the demand. But that is, if they could choose, that is the price where they would like to be switched off. But there is also risk that demand is higher than the market capacity, and in this case there will be rationing, and the price, so the system operator will step in, and there will be rolling blackouts, and the price will be equal to the price cap then. Similar to Natalia, we assume here that there is an externality, that there is a risk of having total blackouts. With some probability the whole market crashes, and there will be total blackout. And we assume here that the system reliability, it goes down. So if there's more investment into the market, then the system reliability will improve. So we assume that M here is an expected cost associated with the blackouts, and where this M then decreases with investments, and which is also convex with respect to epsilon hat. And the thing with reliability is it's a public good, so everyone benefits from a higher reliability. Whereas if someone invests into capacity, he doesn't get sort of the full reward for that, so it will also benefit others. So it's an externality. So that's one potential market failure here, which capacity payments can deal with. So proceeding here with a calculate or analysis, we start with a social planner. So we first assume that the social planner will take care of everything. He will make the investments and clear the market in order to maximize social welfare. And he will choose then the investments. So he considers the benefit that electricity will give to consumers. But then there will also be costs. So there will be an investment cost, and there will be an expected production cost, and then there's also this expected blackout cost. So he will maximize the benefit net of this cost. And what we get is the first expression here is this is the same as Bert called I think optimal technology mix condition. So we also get it here. And it has two parts. So this was the first part, and then there's a second part, which is so the first part is essentially how to get the optimal technology mix if we have for a given market capacity. This condition gives the optimal technology mix for that market capacity. And then we have the second condition, which says what is the optimal cutoff, and so the optimal C bar. And what we found interesting here is that the technology cutoff C bar does not depend on market uncertainty. So there's no, this condition doesn't depend on F, the probability distribution of the demand shocks. So what we mean is that, I mean, obviously, the market capacity will depend on uncertainty in the market, but the range of technologies for which there is investment, this thing doesn't depend on market uncertainty. So that was one thing which was, well, it was somewhat surprising to us, but anyway, this condition makes sense because one can use this optimality condition, the first part of proposition 1, where minus k prime is related to this 1 minus f. So one can use that and replace minus k prime here and put it here. So what this essentially says here that there's a cost of making an extra investment at C bar, the technology cutoff. So this is the cost of making this extra investment. But there is also, one also gains something from making this investment. And the gain is here P star minus C bar, which is sort of a scarcity rent. And 1 minus F of epsilon hat, that's the probability of that this extra plant will be used. And then we have here minus m prime, which is corresponds to this blackout cost. So that was the social planner, and now we will see under what circumstances the market will replicate this. And so we will first consider here a perfectly competitive market. And we will see here how investments depend on the price cap and on the capacity payment. And the conditions we use to derive this is that we assume that there's free entry. So for any technology, there will be, the payoff will be 0, because if someone would make a profit from investing in technology, then there would be more entry into that technology. And what we find is that, this optimal technology mix condition, it still holds, but it doesn't depend on the price cap and capacity payments. But this technology cutoff, C bar, it will depend on price caps and capacity payments. But what we see here from this, so the optimal technology mix condition doesn't depend on price cap and capacity payments. So what this means is that if we would increase the price cap or the capacity payment, so there would be more money to the producers, that wouldn't change anything below the cutoff. Those investments would be exactly the same. So those extra payments, all of that goes into investments into sort of peaker technologies at the top of the marginal cost curve. And the trajectory is the same. Doesn't matter if we increase price caps or capacity payments, the trajectory will be the same anyway. And then the question was how to make sure that we have a socially optimal capacity. And then we had this condition for the social planner, this condition for the optimal technology cutoff. So we want to replicate this condition. In the market we get another technology cutoff condition, so we just need to make sure that these conditions will give the same value for C bar. And then we find that this will be the case. So investments will be socially optimal when this holds. And there are many combinations that will satisfy this condition. So there will be many combinations of a price cap and capacity payments which will satisfy this condition. But the simplest one would be to simply set the price cap at the value of lost load, as is often sort of recommended. But the thing here is also that we have this externality due to the system reliability. And in order to internalize this externality, we need to give producers an extra payment, which is corresponds then to the slope of the expected blackout cost. So so note that M prime here is negative, so that will be a positive number. Okay. And then we also make an extension here, which is quite simple, where we look at the monopoly producer. It's actually quite simple because we have inelastic demand. So he would just put the price. I mean, the monopolist doesn't lose anything by increasing the price. He will have the same output anyway. So he will just push the price all the way up to the price cap, and he will supply along the price cap. And so that's bad news for the consumers because it means higher prices. But the good news is that the monopolist becomes non-strategic in terms of investments, because the price will be at the price cap, whatever happens. It doesn't matter if there's rationing, doesn't matter what the marginal cost curve is, the price will just be at the price cap anyway. So under these circumstances, investment will actually be socially optimal as for under the same conditions as for the perfectly competitive markets. But obviously the surplus will change. So in the perfectly competitive market, I said that producers, they don't make any profits, so it's zero. But here the monopolists will make a lot of money because the price is always at the price cap. So there will be lower consumer surplus. For the perfectly competitive market, I said that there were many combinations of a price cap and the capacity payments which would give which would optimize social welfare. And in that case, it doesn't actually matter also in terms of how the surplus is divided, because the producers will always get zero surplus in the perfectly competitive market. But there's a difference with in this market with a monopolist, because then one can actually influence the surplus of the profit of the monopolist by changing the price cap. So we assume here that we stick to the combinations of a price cap and capacity payment, which give socially optimal investments. And if we go down with the price cap and go up with the capacity payment in order to keep social welfare at its optimum, we will, if we do this, we will actually reduce the profit of the monopolist. So here, with this we actually show that capacity markets can be used to mitigate market power. Yeah, so that was more or less it. So so this is very much work in progress, and this is it's quite basic as so far. But what we sort of conclude with the stuff that we have here is that we make this contribution that we study capacity markets, and for when we have a continuum of technologies, and we find that there is a wide range of combinations of price caps and capacity payments, which will maximize social welfare. And this will be, there are the same condition for perfectly competitive markets and for a monopolist. But there is a different in terms of surplus, because in the perfectly competitive case, then producers, they will get zero surplus, whatever we do, basically. Whereas in the monopoly market, we can actually reduce the profit of the monopolist by reducing the price cap and increasing capacity payments and withholding social welfare at its optimum. And the other observation here was that when we increase price caps or capacity payments in order to give more money to producers, then all of those, all the new investments will come in at the top of the marginal cost curve, so it will go into the peaking technologies, whereas investments at below the cutoff, they will remain unchanged. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Pär.
We'll invite Professor Anderson up to ask his.
Okay, so let me be very
This is
quick,
where the question.
I just want to thank Pär for his talk, and an observation one can make immediately is that there is a lot of variety in terms of exactly how capacity markets are organized and set up. So I guess that trying to understand exactly what happens when we play with some of these parameters is really a very useful thing to do. Pär, the majority of what you were talking about was, of course, in a competitive market, and then we throw in the monopoly case at the end. And I guess that the thought and question I want to ask you is, well, supposing we have market power without going the whole hog to a monopoly. I mean, supposing, for example, that there is some kind of collusive market power opportunity for the peaking generation. Does the results, the kind of things that you were talking about, still I mean, you suggested that would follow by talking about market power, but how robust would these kinds of results be to some component of market power within the overall framework?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I would think that this would actually make producers strategic. I mean, if they have, if there would be oligopolists rather than monopolists, so I would think that probably social welfare, one couldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't be the same optimal investments, I think, because then producers would. I guess one would have a case where producers could actually influence the price, so one wouldn't have sort of a flat, so that would be a price independent of demand outcome. So I think in that case, the producers would actually be able to influence the prices, and therefore the investments would probably be strategic. I would suspect as well. Yeah, so that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. We have ample time for questions in the audience.
What I could add there is, I would still think that it would be good to, one could still mitigate this problem with the capacity market and reducing the price cap and increase the capacity premium. So I think that would still hold. I would think, but I don't think one could maintain to have the socially optimal investments under those circumstances.
Okay, Chris.
Chris Dent, Edinburgh University and the Alan Turing Institute. So it's a concern I often have about economic models used for capital planning timescale questions is that they typically involve fairly strong assumptions which are a bit different from the way the real world looks. So it's actually quite a general question. So in this kind of modelling, what sort of robust conclusions are we able to draw about the real world as opposed to about the modern world? Given that, I mean, for instance, a classic thing is that I think in Britain, when we talk about the idea of long-run equilibriums, I think in Britain the empirical evidence is that the mean time between major redesigns of the energy market is about 11 to 12 years. And the capital life of assets is typically several times that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a question that could be asked after each and every one of the presentations this week. But
Yeah, I'm happy that it came to me. Yeah, but
all models were wrong category.
yeah, but I think that's a good question. But I think it's good to start with a simple model before one sort of go for a more. I mean, so one must understand the simple model. One can so move on and have a more complicated model and sort of bring in one effect at a time. That would be my view, at least. Instead of going for the full model right away. But it depends a bit on if I want to sort of understand what's the underlying mechanism, or if I want to sort of if one is sort of an investor who want to sort of make money, and then obviously one should throw in everything. But yeah, so it depends a bit.
Which thing would you throw in next?
Well, so
I gave you a free graduate student.
yeah, I mean, so I think actually, I'm not sure we could do that, but I think what this Eddie mentioned with bringing in oligopolists, I think I'm not sure I think that would be quite complicated. But I think where we will look, I think, is to look at strategic reserves and maybe different types of capacity mechanisms. That would be, I think, the next step. Yeah.
Okay. Stan.
With regard to the second of your conclusions there, one great advantage of capacity markets is the guaranteed payment up front.
Yes.
And so they take out a lot of the uncertainty as to what is going to happen
Yeah.
with the energy markets, which is where the price caps live. So the price caps might or might not be relevant depending on how the stochastic future evolves. And I'm just wondering to what extent. I think it's one of the reasons why capacity markets have been, David may correct me, particularly successful in this country, that they take out those uncertainties which you cannot do with other mechanisms. So
Yeah.
it's not, I'm just wondering to the extent to which your analysis when you put a price cap as opposed to capacity market reflects that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, there are. I think what you say it makes a lot of sense, but yeah. So there are. I mean, many reasons why one can have many motivations for having a capacity markets, and I think that the one you gave is a good one, and in practice maybe one of perhaps the most important one even. Yeah.
Let's see. Professor Newberry wiggled a finger. I saw that before I saw Andy's hand go up. So
And so here's maybe a more tractable approach to the imperfect competition, and that is to ask, would it be advantageous to restrict who it was who built the peaking capacity? So you can imagine on the one hand representatives of the consumers, the owners of intermittent generation, the smaller generators rather than the larger generators. So the idea of restricting the actions that those with market power can exercise might be a fruitful way of addressing that.
Yeah. So yes, I've seen such models. I think. Well, I think it might be. Perhaps one could do it for renewables. Something at. I mean, I think one would have to do it somewhere at the end point, so to speak. Maybe at the bottom, sort of with zero marginal cost, might be where one could have a bit special.
The question was, where would you like to allocate the control of the peaking plant?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not expecting.
Yeah. 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 That's I maybe we need to think about that again.
Yeah, I had probably a relatively stupid question, which is about the effect of the price cap on the investment, where you said price cap and capacity payments don't affect investment below the peaking plant.
Yeah.
And is that those two effects together conspiring, or I would thought of changing the price cap on its own would affect investment at every level?
No, that's that's not what we find. And I guess the reason is that this condition, this condition here, that this optimal technology mix condition, so it will So this condition will hold, sort of, and this condition doesn't say anything about price cap and capacity payment. So that's why it doesn't matter. Yeah. So if we give more money to producers, it will follow the curve implied by that condition.
So they all make more rents, but their rents are sort of equilibrated out in a way which don't make them change their investment. Is that the kind of
Yeah. So I mean, so it's still zero. I mean, so
Zero profit.
yeah. So actually, what happens here? They get more. I mean, so the two effects. So they get more money from the price cap, let's say. But on the other hand, there's a lower risk of having rationing because there's more capacity in the market. So those effects will sort of.
It's still the least cost way of delivering up to the peaking capacity. That makes a plant.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Steve Stoff might have identified something similar
Yeah, it's a
using
very
screening
general
curve type
result, yeah.
methods in his capacity chapter in his electricity book.
Oh, yeah. I think yes. Yeah, that might be the
You
case.
could also see that sort of incentive constraints that are satisfying for people to invest in this data. That only sort of the direct effect of your cost matter, and all the strategic effect disappears with the envelope theory. Maybe
Yeah, that's I couldn't quite follow. I think you need to explain.
okay. we
Yeah,
can-
late afterwards maybe.
Okay.
Another question. Can you just show me the social welfare objective again? I just want to make. I might or might not have a question.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe not.
It went by quickly.
Yeah. To avoid questions, I guess.
Okay, so the outage cost is the VOL at the value of loss load, P star, this is the right-hand term, times the probability of not having enough capacity, times the entire demand. So if a blackout happens, you're blacking out everybody, or you're just blacking out.
Yeah. So if you're looking at the top equation, it's not really total blackout. It's rationing. So that's when we have rationing.
It's the rolling blackout.
Yeah, rolling blackout. Yeah. That's
Okay,
it. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering whether the externality was arising because if you blacked out suddenly everybody's blacked out, but that's not the case.
Well, yeah, it is, but then we hide. We don't go into the details of that. So we just have this term to account for that. So and we say that yeah, there is some this cost of blackouts, and we say that this cost depends on with market capacity. So if there's more market capacity, it means we lower the risk of having blackouts. So therefore, this cost will go down. So we just sort of make it really simple in that sense.
Okay, and just to make sure I understand, in the event a blackout occurs, you're rationing, so most people still get their demand fulfilled, but it's the excess that does not.
Yeah, but this last term is if there's a total blackout. So that is some extra thing which happens. Yeah, so the one at the top, that's for when we have rationing, sort of rolling blackouts. But the last term is if we would have a total blackout.
Okay, and you don't need to be explicit about when that happens.
Yeah, we sort of have it a bit. We have.
It's okay. It's just a function. Imagine that comes from somewhere. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Anything else before tea? If not, we're going to break until 1:15. So we get 35 minutes. So please be back here promptly, which will allow us then to have a happy hour to start on time if we all badly want. Okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.